Welcome back. Another quick drill for you today for your winter practice. Good old head cover under the armpit drill. You'll have all tried it at some point. You may not know why you've done it. I'm going to explain today what it looks like, why it's a good thing to do, and how it will encourage you to make good movements throughout your whole game, not just with these sort of shorter shots that I'm about to show you. So here I am on the Emirates Golf Club actually. If you watched Rory win last week for the 4th time, you'll recognise this. It's the 18th hole. I'm just this side of that last lake. I've got about 62 yards with my first series of shots here to show you, and then I'll move back a bit further towards the end. So why do we do it? Well, we do this drill basically to try and encourage the correct movements, especially on the shorter shots. The temptation with these shorter shots for a lot of you is that the wrong part of the body becomes dominant, and it's totally subconscious, and in some respects it's rational. So here, what we see a lot on the golf course is people with these short shots. Their hands and arms become the dominant factor in these swings. The swings become slightly scoopy as we try and get the ball elevated, because we can see we've got water to get over. We know that it's a short shot, so we were expecting elevation, and we stop using the loft of the club correctly, and we power it with the wrong parts of the body. So apologies if this looks a little bit like your short game shots, but this would be an incorrect movement where the hands and arms are too dominant as we take the club away. So here, my body's going to stay relatively still. The club comes away with the hands and arms here, and we sort of try and get the ball in the air. Now, you can see it's come up short and in the water, and I hit the ground before the ball. So there's some of the symptoms that if you do this movement and get it wrong, you will see fat and thin shots with your wedges. You'll see balls going an inconsistent distance, because very often you'll apply too much loft through impact and the ball won't go as far as you're expecting it to. But generally you will be underconfident with your half to 3/4 wedge game if you're using your hands and arms too much. So how does this little fellow help? Well, by putting this under my arm here, it's going to encourage my hands and arms basically to stick closer to my body, and therefore the only thing which I can now propel the club with is my rotational movement of my body, which is a good thing to get used to throughout your whole game, but particularly with these shots. It will have the effect, because I'm using less hands and arms, of presenting the loft to the ball on a much more consistent basis, so you'll get a much tighter dispersion of shots as well. So whenever we take the club away with our hands and arms only, the club tends to detach from the body. Generally it goes too steep through the ball, and therefore we don't get the right amount of loft and we don't hit the low spot of the swing very often. By putting this club head cover, I should say, under my arm, now it forces my body to rotate in the backswing and my right arm to collapse at the right point so that I can keep the head cover in place. And now you can see I'm almost fully rotated in my trunk, and therefore to hit the golf ball I have to unwind my body through the shot, and it becomes a shot that Nick Faldo says, if I can steal his phrase, you feel as though you're hitting the ball with your shirt buttons. It feels like it's a rotational movement, and this just under your arm will encourage that. So let me show you what I mean. Here we go. Ball position in the same spot, dead center. Bit of pressure on my right armpit area so I can keep my arm tucked in. It's going to force me to turn through the shot here and turn through. Okay, and deceptively the ball goes quite a long way from such a short swing, because I'm applying the loft correctly to the shot. So give that a go. Start off with something like a gap wedge from something like 60 yards and just get the feeling of the movement. The further that you have to hit the ball, the more tempting it is for that right arm to go off on its holidays and let the head cover drop. But once you've practiced a few times, then we'll move a bit further away now, and I'll show you what it looks like in a slightly fuller movement. So here we are. I've dropped my bag of balls now at 95 yards away from the flag. Same club, gap wedge, and again it's not my full shot with a gap wedge, but it's getting much closer to it. And if there was any temptation for me to detach my arm, it would be on this length of shot, because it's going to force me to go to a much fuller position. If I was not thinking correctly, my arm, I'd allow my right arm to detach, create a little bit too much width, and therefore timing and application of loft gets very difficult. So here I'm going to put the head cover back in. I'm going to make a slightly fuller movement with a little bit more rotation and see what happens. Okay, probably left about a 12-footer up the hill, not too bad. You can see when I do this, I'll do one more for you, that one of the big effects of having this under my arm is that the club stays on plane. And what do I mean by that? Well, if the head cover wasn't there, my hands and arms could move independently of my body, taking my club off plane in any direction, and the head cover would fall out. By having this under my arm, you'll see this time when it runs through, that the club, when it gets about halfway back, the butt of the club will be pointing in a straight line almost to where the ball is. And that's what we call being on plane. It means that the club just has to go end over end back onto the golf ball, and we become much more consistent. So this is one of the good side effects for your longer game of having practiced with something under your arm. It keeps the club on a nice plane. Here we go, let's just see if we can get a little bit more out of it, put it closer to that flag. Similar, I fancy. Oh, even shorter. Possibly a bit out the toe. Okay, one more for luck. Let's hold this one. That felt better. This time. Oh, got to give me that one. 6 inches away. Okay, so you might feel a bit uncomfortable, and you might struggle to just get used to it for a few, but generally it's a good practice drill to do for the winter. And when you take the head cover out and go back to hitting balls normally, just feel as though it is there. There's a little bit of pressure in that right armpit area, and it stays nicely close to the body, which will put the club on plane for you. Okay, well, I hope that's helped. Hope you know why you're doing it now. Any questions, obviously, come and speak to us. You know where we are, and I hope that helps for the season ahead.